You're watching classified real crime files. Today's episode is not a regular one. Out of everything we've covered, I've personally selected 3 cases. 3 stories that, in my view, stand above the rest. These are the ones that don't leave you. The kind you keep thinking about days later. If you consider yourself a true fan of real crime, this video was made with you in mind. Reagan Tokes had her whole life ahead of her. Then, one cold February night in Columbus, Ohio, a man who should have been behind bars took everything from her. A GPS monitor, a level 3 sex offender, a system that looked the other way. This is her story. In a small Tennessee town, Emma Walker was the girl everyone admired. But the person closest to her had become her greatest threat. What looked like love from the outside was something far more sinister, and it ended with a shot fired through her bedroom wall. She walked into a bar one evening, hoping to meet people and maybe pick up a shift. 2 seats away, a predator had already made his decision. Jackie Vandagriff never made it home. And what police found the next morning was so brutal, so deliberate, that detectives with decades on the job said they had seen nothing like it. We are starting now, and you let us know in the comments which case made the biggest impression on you.
February 8th, 2017. Grove City, Ohio. The air is so cold it bites, and the silence inside Scioto Grove Metro Park is absolute. But as the sun rises over the pristine white landscape, that silence is shattered by a discovery that will haunt this city forever. Lying in the frozen drifts is the body of a young woman, stripped of her clothes, stripped of her future. As the frost is cleared and the investigation begins, the world learns the name of the girl in the snow, Reagan Tokes. She was 21 years old, a daughter, a sister. A bright light extinguished in the shadows of the woods. But Reagan wasn't the first to feel the darkness. For weeks, a creeping dread had been suffocating the neighborhoods of German Village and the South Side. A string of brutal, faceless attacks had left the community barricading their doors. Was this a serial predator finally claiming a life? Or was the monster someone much closer to home? Someone like the man who claimed to love her? Tonight, we peel back the layers of a system that failed and a hunter who was hiding in plain sight. We are reconstructing the final hours, minute by agonizing minute. This is Mystery Vault Stories, and this is The Nightmare at Scioto Grove. Every story in the Mystery Vault begins with a life. But few lives were as vibrant and full of promise as that of Reagan Delaney Tokes. Born in 1995, Reagan was a force of nature. Growing up in Maumee, Ohio, she was the definition of a high achiever, a 4.5 GPA student, a varsity athlete in tennis and lacrosse, and a young woman deeply rooted in her faith. But those who knew her didn't talk about her grades first. They talked about her heart. Her mother, Lisa, remembers a girl who couldn't stand to see anything suffer. If there was a bug on the sidewalk, Reagan would stop the car to move it to safety. She was a social butterfly, the kind of person who looked for whoever was standing alone in the corner, just to make sure they felt seen. By the winter of 2017, Reagan was a 21-year-old senior at Ohio State University. She was months away from graduating with a degree in psychology. She had a plan: work for a few years, then open her own practice. She wanted to heal minds. She had just posted a photo of the frame her father bought for her diploma. The finish line was in sight. But as Reagan prepared for her future, a dark shadow was already moving through the streets of Columbus. A predator that the system had already captured labeled as dangerous, and then, inexplicably, left to roam free. Before we dive deeper into the investigation, I want to take a quick second to connect with all of you. These stories reach people in every corner of the globe, and I'm always fascinated by how far Reagan's legacy travels. Do me a favor, drop a comment below and let me know which city you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. It helps me visualize our community as we walk through these vaults together. Thank you for being here. Now, let's get back to the case. It was a typical Wednesday night in Columbus, February 8th, 2017. The air was cold, the streets dusted with snow. Reagan was wrapping up her shift at Bodega, a popular spot in the Short North District. Around 9:45 p.m., she said goodbye to her coworkers and walked toward her car. But Reagan wasn't the only one on those streets. For weeks, a sense of dread had been creeping through the nearby neighborhoods of German Village and the South Side. A string of violent attacks had left the community on edge. Between January and early February, at least 6 armed robberies had occurred. Women were being ambushed in garages, held at knife point, or pistol whipped in front of their own homes. On January 24th, a woman was robbed with a knife to her throat. On February 6th, just 2 days before Reagan vanished, a woman was attacked while getting items from her trunk. The suspect shoved her to the ground and pistol whipped her across the face. The police were investigating, but they hadn't yet made a connection.
Residents are on high alert tonight after last night's latest armed robbery. This is the 3rd attack in this neighborhood in 2 weeks. All of the victims are women. NBC4's Tyler Carter is live from German Village tonight, where residents have called a safety meeting. Tyler?
Yes, Ellie, since that last attack last night, the German Village Society called a meeting with Columbus Police, and residents is going on right now in their headquarters. They want to know exactly what is going on in this neighborhood, and residents I spoke with say they are not taking these attacks lightly.
I heard someone yell help, and so I ran outside, and half of the neighbors were already out here.
Last night, just before 10 o'clock, a woman who lives in this German Village neighborhood on Mohawk and Frankfurt Street was robbed by gunpoint and attacked. Columbus police say the woman was getting things out of the trunk of her car when a man walked up behind her and demanded she give him her purse.
Little did they know, the man responsible for this reign of terror was wearing a state-issued GPS ankle monitor. He was trolling for victims, crisscrossing the very streets Reagan walked every day. At 10:30 p.m., Reagan's sister Mackenzie sent a text. The message was delivered, but there was no reply. Her father, Toby, began to call. For 4 hours, he called. Each ring was a heartbeat of growing dread. Around 2 a.m., the signal went dead. At noon that Thursday, a passerby near Scioto Grove Metro Park found a body.
Hello, 911. Yeah, I think there's a body out here. I don't know if this is a fake or what. Please send somebody. Hurry. This is really freaking awful. Please hurry, send somebody. Okay, stay right there, sir.
A young woman, naked in the snow. A small circular tattoo and a delicate necklace were the only clues left. When the police confirmed it was Reagan, the city of Columbus didn't just feel grief. It felt fear.
A missing persons case in Columbus is now a murder investigation. Police have confirmed the body found yesterday in a Grove City park is an OSU student.
21-year-old Reagan Tokes was last seen Wednesday night leaving a bar in the Short North where she worked. And tonight, we have team coverage with reaction from OSU students and employees who work in the Short North.
The Columbus Police Missing Persons report says that according to a bodega employee, Tokes usually has a bartender walk her to her car, but didn't when she left Wednesday night. Thursday afternoon, Tokes' body was spotted by a motorist at Scioto Grove Metro Park in Grove City. Investigators are now trying to fill in the timeline and identify a suspect. Did she make it to her car? Niall Woodson says it would be potentially easy for something to go unseen on those streets behind Bodega.
There's one light here on the block which, keeps this area bright. but the whole next block is very dark. It's very dark. There's not a street light for another block down.
So did something happen here or somewhere else? Was her killer someone she knew or a total stranger? If investigators know the answers, they're not saying. Tokes' roommates did tell police she was recently depressed over a breakup with her ex-boyfriend, but they stated to their knowledge it was a mutual breakup.
The monster that had been stalking German Village had finally taken a life. In the early hours of any murder investigation, the police always start with the inner circle. The statistics are grim. Victims are most often killed by someone they know. This brought the detectives' focus directly onto Reagan's former boyfriend, Jake. Reagan and Jake had recently gone through a mutual breakup. They were still close. Jake even described her as his best friend. But for the police, mutual is a word they treat with skepticism. Detectives took a hard look at Jake's recent social media activity. He had posted a heartbreaking tribute to Reagan on Instagram shortly after her death was announced. To the public, it was a grieving boyfriend's tribute. To the detectives, something about the wording felt off. Was it too polished? Was it an attempt to create an alibi? They brought him in. They scrutinized his timeline, his phone records, and his movements on the night of February 8th. Friends and family were stunned. They knew Jake adored her. But the police have a job to do, and for a tense period, Jake was a person of interest.
When was the last time you talked to her?
Probably a week and a half ago.
Is that normal?
Well, not usually. I talk to her every day, but we were breaking up, kind of. It was just we didn't have enough time really for each other. We had to focus on school. She even said it in one of the texts. I mean, I'm one of her best friends.
Okay, Jake, let me ask you this. Don't take this the wrong way.
Okay.
Why in the world would you write out that you're in a better place?
Well, how can I see what I am? I was talking to her like she's in heaven.
You just don't hear it very often, better place, when somebody was living a good life.
Well, no, I know, but if I were to go today, I would know that I would go somewhere better. That's just what I believe, so.
You said you posted on Instagram?
Yes, sir.
However, as the digital forensics came back, Jake's story held firm. His alibi was solid, and his grief was undeniably real. As one lead cooled, a massive breakthrough was about to come from an unexpected place: Reagan's own car. While detectives were questioning Jake, another team was scouring the city for Reagan's silver Acura TL. Using automated license plate readers, they found it abandoned on a residential street in southeast Columbus. The car was a treasure trove of evidence, but it also told a story of a killer who was desperate to hide his tracks. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of gasoline. There were cigarette burn marks on the seats and an overturned gas can in the trunk. The killer had tried, twice, to set the car on fire to destroy any forensic trail. But the fire hadn't taken, and in his haste, the killer had left something behind in the back seat: a half-smoked cigarette butt. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, BCY, worked through the night. By the next morning, they had a hit. The DNA on that cigarette didn't belong to a boyfriend or a friend. It belonged to Brian Lee Goldsby. Goldsby was a level 3 sex offender who had been released from prison just months prior after serving 6 years for a brutal kidnapping and rape. The system already had his DNA on file. But as the police pulled Goldsby's records, the horror deepened. Brian Lee Goldsby was wearing a GPS ankle monitor. When the police pulled the GPS data, the mystery vault of the system's failure flew wide open. The monitor showed Goldsby at the restaurant when Reagan left. It showed him at every ATM she was forced to visit. It showed him at the park for exactly 10 minutes, the time it took to execute Reagan. Most infuriatingly, the data showed him at the scenes of the German Village robberies from the previous weeks. The state had been tracking his every move while he committed crime after crime. But because he had no curfew and no one was watching the data in real time, he was effectively a ghost. Goldsby was arrested at a halfway house on February 11th.
Got on here real quick. Talk about anything if you ask questions, all that stuff. Just tell them Nick's gonna talk to him. That's all. That's the only answer to give them. Yep. Works for me.
During a grueling 6-hour interrogation, he tried to shift the blame. He invented a man named TJ. He claimed TJ was the mastermind who forced him to rape and rob Reagan at gunpoint. He even described Reagan's final moments, attributing her execution to this fictional partner.
He gets behind me. At first I heard a click, nothing happened, so I'm taking the gun that he gave me to save me. And it goes, pow! She falls. She's laying on the ground. I'm looking on the car. And then God shoots her leg. Pow!
But the police played along, knowing they had the smoking gun. There was no TJ. There were no second sets of footprints in the snow. Goldsby had acted alone, fueled by a depravity that the system had failed to contain. In recorded jail calls, Goldsby finally dropped the mask. "I did it," he told a friend. "I killed that girl for the money." He even admitted to giving Reagan's wallet to his girlfriend as a Valentine's Day gift. In March 2018, Brian Lee Goldsby was found guilty of aggravated murder, rape, and kidnapping. While he escaped the death penalty, he was sentenced to multiple life terms without the possibility of parole. But for the Tokes family and Reagan's boyfriend, Jake, justice wasn't just about putting one man behind bars. It was about ensuring no other family had to receive that 2 a.m. phone call. They looked back at those prior attacks in German Village. They looked at the 52 infractions Goldsby had in prison that didn't stop his release. They looked at the unmonitored GPS data. Toby and Lisa Tokes, along with the support of Reagan's friends and Jake, became the architects of change.
Good evening. Thank you for staying with us tonight at 6. I'm Mike Jackson.
And I'm Ellie Merritt. Colleen has the evening off. The parents of Reagan Tokes stood bravely next to lawmakers presenting this new legislation.
Away from the spotlight, Lisa and Toby Tokes have been hard at work for months to do everything in their power to help prevent other families from enduring tragedies similar to theirs. But publicly, we have not heard from Reagan's parents until today.
Something positive had to come from it, and God finds ways to do good in all things, even evil.
There was no choice except we had to act immediately.
Well, and the Tokes family has embraced this legislative effort, and they believe that the proposal goes right really to the heart of what went wrong with the release from prison of accused killer Brian Goldsby. Lisa Tokes said supporting legislative change in the wake of her daughter's violent death is the right thing to do.
It was preventable. And if the correct parameters would have been in place and acted upon in a timely manner, we might not be standing before you today advocating for change.
And this bill has bipartisan support at this point, and the sponsors say they hope to move it along as quickly as possible.
They fought for the Reagan Tokes law. They fought for indefinite sentencing, so violent offenders with 52 infractions like Goldsby can be kept in prison longer. They fought for real-time GPS monitoring and lower caseloads for parole officers. They fought to fix the broken bridge between prison and the community. Today, the law is a reality in Ohio.
1 week after an Ohio State senior was last seen alive, her friends and family are saying their final goodbyes.
This service, this celebration of life, was a chance to focus more on the Reagan Tokes everyone knew and loved, and not so much on the sudden and violent way that her life ended. Friends describe her as an amazing, very loving and happy person. From the church service in Maumee to a graveside service in nearby Perrysburg, Reagan Tokes was then laid to rest. All across Ohio, people have expressed feeling a connection to Reagan Tokes and her family. An online guest book includes many comments like this one from a woman in Grove City. Although I didn't know her personally, this story has touched my heart tremendously. My heart just aches for all of you, and even more so, Reagan.
Reagan Tokes didn't get to become a psychologist, but her name is now synonymous with the protection of millions. As we close this vault, we remember Reagan not just as a victim, but as a catalyst. Her life was taken by a monster, but her legacy was built by those who loved her. The ghost in the monitor is no longer invisible. He is a reminder that we must always be watching for Reagan's sake. This has been a Mystery Vault story. If you believe in Reagan's legacy, please share this video. Let's make sure the system never fails like this again. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next vault. In the quiet suburbs of Knoxville, Tennessee, a single bullet shattered the silence. A 16-year-old girl, asleep in her own bed, killed with terrifying precision. No struggle, no forced entry. Just 2 shots, fired through a wall by someone who knew exactly where she was. This wasn't random. This was personal. At first, it looked impossible, like the work of a professional. But the truth was far more disturbing, because the killer wasn't a stranger. He was someone who had been inside that house, someone who claimed he loved her. Investigators had a suspect. They had a motive. But they were missing one thing: the weapon. So they made a risky move. They turned to his closest friends and wired them. What happened next was caught on hidden camera. And in that moment, the grieving boyfriend disappeared. And something else took his place. How does a hero become a killer? How does love turn into control, and control into murder? This is a story of obsession, manipulation, and betrayal. This is Deadly Devotion, the Emma Walker story. Every town has its golden couple. In Knoxville, it was the cheerleader and the football star. Emma Jane Walker, 16, was a girl who seemed to vibrate with life. An honor student with a deep love for animals, she dreamt of spending her life in a neonatal ward, cradling premature babies back to health. Then there was William Riley Gall, 2 years older, a wide receiver for the Central High Bobcats. He wasn't your stereotypical jock. Friends called him a jokester, a bit nerdy, a guy who loved video games and church. When they started dating in 2014, it looked like a scene from a movie. All right, friends, let me pause for just a minute. I'm really curious where my audience is watching from. I'd love to ask you something real quick. Tell me what city you're in while you're watching this video, and what time it is for you right now. Thanks so much for taking a moment to share that. Go ahead and drop it in the comments. And with that said, let's keep going. But beneath the surface of this picture-perfect couple, a dark pattern was forming. It began with check-ins, Riley needing to know where Emma was every minute. Then came the isolation. He didn't want her talking to other boys. He didn't want her spending time with friends he didn't approve of. For 2 years, the relationship was a revolving door of breakups and dramatic reunions. Riley used a hero complex as a weapon. If Emma tried to leave, he would threaten suicide. He made her feel that his very life depended on her presence. By late 2016, Emma's parents, Mark and Jill, had seen enough. They saw the light in their daughter's eyes fading under the weight of Riley's possessiveness. They took a drastic step. They grounded her, not as punishment, but as protection. They banned her from seeing him, and for a moment, it worked. Emma began to find herself again. She told her friends, "We're finally done." But Riley Gall was a man who viewed no as a challenge. If he couldn't be her boyfriend, he would be her savior. He just needed a crisis to rescue her from. The weekend of November 18th, 2016, was the beginning of the end. Riley stole a 9mm Glock from under the seat of his grandfather's car. His grandfather, fearing Riley might use it on himself, reported it missing. But Riley wasn't planning on ending his own life. Friday night, Emma is at a friend's house. She receives terrifying texts from an unknown number. One says, "Come outside alone if you don't want anyone you care about to get hurt." Frightened, she goes outside and finds Riley lying face down in a ditch, claiming he had been kidnapped. It was a staged drama, a desperate bid for her sympathy. Emma didn't buy it. She walked away. Saturday morning, a man in black appears at her door, banging and ringing the bell. Panicked, Emma calls the only person she thinks can protect her, Riley. He arrives, saves her, and for a fleeting moment, he is the hero again. But Emma's mother arrives and kicks him out. The illusion is shattered. Sunday night, November 20th. Emma is back in her room at the Sturchy Hills neighborhood. She's studying, texting friends, and eventually, she goes to sleep. At 12:30 a.m., Riley drives from his dorm at Maryville College. He is no longer playing the hero. He is playing the judge. Riley stands in the backyard, just 4 feet from the wall of Emma's bedroom. He knows the layout of this house perfectly. He knows exactly where her bed is positioned. He raises the 9mm Glock. 2 shots. The first passes through the wall and embeds in her pillow. The second strikes 16-year-old Emma Jane Walker behind her left ear. She never wakes up. Riley drives back to his dorm. He calls a friend to ask how to get fingerprints off a gun. Then, he waits. 6 a.m. Monday. Jill Walker goes to wake her daughter for school. She finds Emma unresponsive. The 911 call is a haunting record of a mother's worst nightmare.
Where is your emergency?
Jill Walker!
What's going on there?
I just tried to wake up my daughter for school, and she has no pulse.
How old is she?
She's 16.
You said that she's non-responsive?
Yeah.
Within minutes, the quiet morning air of the Sturchy Hills subdivision was pierced by the wail of sirens. First responders and Knox County Sheriff's deputies descended on the Walker home, their boots thumping on the driveway that Emma had walked up just hours before. Inside, the scene was one of frozen domestic normalcy. Emma lay in her bed, her room filled with the typical artifacts of a teenage life: school books, cheerleading gear, and memories. But the stillness was wrong. The police and detectives came to the scene and the investigation of a crime scene began. Lead Detective Alan Merritt and his team began the grim task of processing the room. Initially, there was confusion. There were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry through the doors, and no shattered glass. The investigators moved with clinical precision. They looked at the positioning of Emma's body, noting the single devastating wound behind her left ear. As the lead forensic technician began a sweep of the perimeter, the suicide theory began to crumble. Outside, beneath the window of Emma's bedroom, the morning light caught the glint of brass. Bullet casings were found near the house. One shell casing, then a few feet away, another. 2 9mm spent casings sat in the grass, discarded like cigarette butts. The investigators looked up from the grass to the exterior siding of the house. There, a hole from a bullet was visible from the outside. 2 small, jagged entry points against the pale wall of the home. Inside Emma Walker's room is the corresponding bullet hole in the drywall. The geometry of the crime became clear. A laser-straight line could be drawn from those holes outside, through the wall, and directly into the space where Emma's head had rested. One bullet was stuck in the pillow, missing her by inches and lodging itself into the wood of the bed frame. One bullet was in Emma Walker's head. This wasn't a suicide. It was a sniper-style execution. The precision was chilling. Whoever had pulled the trigger wasn't just firing blindly. They were firing with a topographical knowledge of exactly where that 16-year-old girl would be lying. The shooter hadn't even needed to see their target. They had used the wall as a veil and the bullets as a final, silent word. The name Riley Gall is on everyone's lips within hours, but Riley plays the grieving boyfriend. He posts a 300-word tribute on Twitter, calling her "my beautiful Emma." He cries at the vigil. He thinks he is untouchable, but he underestimated his own friends. Alex McCarty and Noah Walton knew about the stolen gun. They saw the cracks in Riley's story. When the police approached them, they didn't hesitate. They chose their conscience over their friend. Detectives from the Knox County Sheriff's Office wire Alex and Noah with hidden cameras and microphones. They tell Riley they want to help him get rid of the package. The tension is palpable. The boys meet Riley at Noah's house. Riley is paranoid. He wants to go to the Bluffs, a wooded area by the river, to dispose of the weapon and the black clothes he wore that night.
But I'm trusting you guys, with my life, because this is 70 years in jail if I get convicted of something I didn't do. Man, are you busy right now? When you guys do anything? Because I need your, the blood. I'm going to throw it in the water. They'll never find it. We can go on that, the smaller ledge that really looks out of the water. You know what I'm talking about? Like under? Yeah. And if I throw it with enough force, I know it's terrifying. I know this. You guys don't have to come with me if you don't want to. I'm not too bad, man. I just need to Christ, dude. I understand. If it's in the Tennessee River, they will never find it. I know that much. And how I know it wasn't my grandfather gun? His magazine had 5 shots in total when I first got it. Still has 5 shots in it. If I actually gave him that gun, that's maybe it's 50-50. It may give them reason to say, okay, the fingerprints on this gun and this bullet don't match, cool. But at the same time, they could have never had fingerprints in the first place and be like, oh, and this lawsuit is super common. This bullet fits in this magazine fits in this gun.
In the car, Riley is talking, confessing without realizing it. They arrive at the spot. Riley pulls out a trash bag. He reaches in and pulls out the 9mm Glock. Alex McCarty is recorded on a hidden microphone saying,
Success? It's a bag of trash. I just threw it in there. I don't know what's in there. I just want to throw it and be done.
Oh my God. What? This is a real gun.
That was the signal. Within seconds, the woods were flooded with blue and red lights.
Everybody put your hands out of the vehicle now!
What the Oh my God, man.
What the Leave your hands out of the vehicle! Step out of the vehicle!
The stakeout was a success. Riley Gall was in handcuffs. The trial began in April 2018. It was a battle of narratives. The prosecution, led by Kevin Allen, painted a picture of a calculated killer.
Well, she was their light.
And they're blessed that they got 16 years with her. And they can look at it that way and live the rest of their lives knowing at least we got that. But they'll always be muted. You could sense that from them when they took the stand. Each one of them has suffered a loss at the hands of him. This guy, his personal responsibility, his actions, everything that he did, caused them to suffer, and every person in here who she touched in their lives will never be the same again because of him and his selfishness and his lies and his possessiveness and his manipulation and his obsessiveness of Emma Walker. She's creating this fictitious, this bogus kidnapping story to upset her. When you think about the fact that 3 o'clock in the morning, dressed in black, he's standing outside a 16-year-old girl's bedroom, and you think of all the places he could have placed that shot. All the things that he could have done. Shoot up into the air, shoot him through the window, anywhere, but where you shot. Shot placement shows you an intent to kill.
They introduced evidence from the video game Call of Duty, showing how Riley had mastered wall banging, the tactic of shooting through walls to hit a target you can't see. The defense, led by Wesley Stone, offered a bizarre alternative. They admitted Riley fired the shots, but they claimed he was just a scared kid trying to frighten Emma so he could rescue her again. He didn't mean for the bullets to hit her. He just wanted to be the hero one more time.
So, submit to you that after you've heard all the evidence, and as I told you in the very beginning of this trial, you will hear some bizarre, reckless conduct regarding my teenage client. That everything that they say about premeditation to kill Emma Walker is consistent with him trying to scare her. Because if you scare her, maybe she'll come have contact with you, and therefore you can try to rehabilitate your relationship. I'm not saying it's logical. Do not think that I submit to you that there's any logic in any of this, because it's not logical. None of it is. But it is consistent with the facts as we know them from the witnesses. It's consistent with the facts as we know them from the 18th. And it's consistent with how Emma reached out to him on the 19th. Asked him to rescue her.
The jury didn't buy the hero story. On May 8, 2018, they returned a verdict: guilty of first-degree premeditated murder. Riley had been out on $1 million bond during the trial. He expected to go home that night. Instead, as the word guilty was read, the shackles were brought out. He was sentenced to life in prison. In Tennessee, that means a minimum of 51 years. He will be 70 before he can even request parole. But the legal battle didn't end there. From his cell, Riley began a series of appeals. In 2021, he sat in court again, asking for a new trial based on claims of insufficient evidence. Denied. In 2023, he took it to the appellate court. Denied again. Even as of April 2026, the legal system continues to deal with his petitions. But for Emma's family, the sentence is the only thing that stays the same. Riley is behind bars, and Emma is gone. How do you remember a life cut so short? You don't focus on the person who took it. You focus on the dreams that remained. Today, in Knoxville, children play in the Emma Jane Walker Memorial Dog Park. In the local children's hospital, there is a NICU room dedicated in her name, a place where premature babies fight for their lives, just as Emma once dreamt of helping them do. Emma Walker was a girl of light, kindness, and ambition. She wasn't a victim to be rescued. She was a woman destined for greatness. Riley Gall tried to write the ending to her story, but through her family's grace and the community's memory, Emma's story is still being written. In the end, the truth wasn't found in Riley's lies or his hero complex. It was found in the strength of her friends to speak up and the enduring legacy of a girl who just wanted to save lives.
North Texas, Grapevine Lake, September 14, 2016, 6:30 in the morning. The Grapevine Fire Department received a call about something burning near the lake. When they arrived, they found a small blue children's pool sitting out in the middle of the grass. The kind you can pick up at any big box store for $20, the kind kids splash around in on summer afternoons. Inside it was a body.
They located a body that appeared to have been set on fire. The body, there is some degree of dismemberment to the body. Investigators and crime scene technicians arrived on the scene and began investigating shortly thereafter. We requested the response of the FBI evidence removal and recovery team to assist us in that investigation.
What those first responders found at Grapevine Lake that morning was so brutal, so deliberately cruel, that seasoned detectives, men and women who had spent decades working some of the darkest cases in Texas, would later say they had never seen anything like it. Not once, not in all their years on the job. The body had been dismembered. It had been set on fire. The burns were so severe and so total that investigators standing over the scene in the early morning light could not determine the most basic facts about the victim in front of them. They could not tell if they were looking at an adult or a child. They could not tell if the person had been a man or a woman. They had almost nothing to work with. Almost. There was just enough skin left on the fingertips. And through those fingerprints, investigators were finally able to put a name to what had been done. She was 24 years old. Her name was Jacqueline Ray Vandagriff. Everyone in her life called her Jackie. She had no belongings on her, no bag, no phone, nothing to tell investigators where she had been or who she had spent her last hours with. What they did know was that she lived nearly 20 miles away in Denton, Texas. She had not been reported missing, which meant whatever had happened to her had happened fast. It had happened within hours of her leaving home. The dismemberment alone would have been enough to make this one of the most disturbing cases in the county's history. But investigators would later learn one detail that elevated this crime into something that seasoned law enforcement genuinely struggled to process. Jackie's heart had been removed from her body, deliberately cut out. A witness reported seeing what appeared to be a man standing over the fire before walking away from the scene. That was all they had. No description good enough to work with, no direction, no name. And then, a day after her body was found, something chilling happened. Jackie's Twitter account became active. A new post appeared on her profile. It read, "Never knew I could feel like this." Investigators drew the obvious conclusion. Her killer had her phone. And now, somewhere out there, that person was watching, waiting, possibly even sending a message. The hunt was on.
Hello everyone, my name is Jacqueline Vandagriff, but friends call me Jackie. I am currently a junior here at Texas Women's University, and my major is nutrition with an emphasis in wellness. I chose this major because I realized while working as an esthetician, which is skincare if you're not familiar, I realized the importance of nutrition and just overall health, and decided that this is what I was going to study. So thank you for watching. I am really looking forward to learning about all of you and learning with you in this class.
That was Jackie, speaking directly to camera, relaxed and warm, full of the kind of quiet confidence that comes from someone who genuinely knows who she is and where she is going. She was 24 years old. She was a junior at Texas Women's University. She was somebody's best friend. She was somebody's daughter. And she was somebody who had plans, real ones, the kind you can almost reach out and touch. Jacqueline Ray Vandagriff grew up in Frisco, Texas. From the very beginning, she was a kid who was curious about everything. A voracious reader, the kind of child who devoured books, not because anyone told her to, but because the world genuinely fascinated her, and she wanted to understand as much of it as she possibly could. She was athletic too. By the time she was 3 years old, she had already started gymnastics. 3 years old, she would go on to compete at level 5 in state competitions. That number alone tells you something about her character. Her best friend shared her name. They called themselves Jackie Squared. Her best friend said she was the smartest person she had ever known in her life, that Jackie could have done absolutely anything she wanted with her future. She had this rare and genuine gift for meeting people exactly where they were. You could be completely yourself around her without any of the performance that usually comes with meeting someone new. She was confident, she was outgoing, she was present. And at the same time, there was something disarming and calm about her that made a room feel warmer just by her being in it. After graduating high school, Jackie became a licensed esthetician, skincare, as she explained in that video, because not everyone is familiar with the term. And then she enrolled at Texas Woman's University in Denton, declaring her major in nutrition and food science, with an end goal of becoming a qualified nutritionist. It made perfect sense for someone who had always cared deeply about health and wellness, who had spent years thinking about how the body works and what it needs. She wasn't just studying it academically, she was living it. She was becoming it. Things were going well. Life was moving in exactly the right direction. Jackie was happy. And by every account from everyone who knew and loved her, she had every single reason to be. In the weeks leading up to September 13th, 2016, Jackie had been doing some thinking about her personal life. Like a lot of people her age, she had been using dating apps. But recently, she had told her friends that she wanted to come off the apps and get back out into the real world, meet someone face to face, feel things out in person the old-fashioned way. She was also keeping an eye open for part-time work, something flexible that would fit around her studies. So on the evening of September 13th, with both of those things in mind, Jackie got ready and headed out into Denton. She was going to put herself out there, maybe ask about job openings at a few places, see who she met. It was a perfectly ordinary Tuesday night. It was the kind of thing that millions of young people do every single week without a second thought, in towns and cities all over this country. Detectives were later able to trace her movements precisely through surveillance footage and witness testimony. She made her way toward the strip of bars near the University of North Texas campus. The first place she walked into was the Fry Street Public House Bar. She took a seat at the bar and fell into easy conversation with the bartender, the kind of natural, low-stakes chat that happens in bars all the time. Then, a man sat down 2 seats away from her. He joined the conversation, and Jackie and this man seemed to connect almost immediately, laughing together, showing each other things on their phones, ordering drinks. By the time they left the bar, they were leaving at the same time, side by side. They walked into a second bar just down the block, Shots and Crafts. They took a seat together and were joined by a group of women. The group hung out for about half an hour, easy and social, just people on a Tuesday night. Jackie seemed completely comfortable, happy even. She had absolutely no reason not to be. At 9:45 in the evening, Jackie and the man left the bar together. No one followed them out. No one appeared to be watching them or paying them any particular attention. They got into his car, and he drove to a nearby gas station where a camera caught one final image of Jackie Vandagriff alive, sitting in the front passenger seat, relaxed, perfectly calm, perfectly at ease with the man sitting next to her. That was the last footage of her ever captured. After that gas station, their trail went cold, and less than 9 hours later, her body would be found burning at Grapevine Lake. Investigators needed to identify the man Jackie had spent her final hours with, and this is where the case caught its first real break. A couple of the women the pair had met at Shots and Crafts that night remembered the man clearly. One of them had been given his business card. He had been talking about fitness, about training, and had handed it over the way personal trainers sometimes do when they think they've found a potential client. The name on that card was Charles Dean Bryant. 30 years old, personal trainer, bartender, running his name through the system turned up a few things: a forgery charge, marijuana possession, a misdemeanor assault, the kind of record that raises an eyebrow but doesn't immediately set off the loudest alarm bells on its own. But then there was one entry that stood apart from everything else. Charles Bryant had been arrested 3 times for stalking and harassing a young woman. And just 3 days before Jackie's body was found, 3 days, a protective order had been issued against him. So who was this woman, and what had Charles Bryant done to her? Her name was Caitlin. She was 18 years old when she started dating Charles Bryant. In June of 2016, just 3 months before Jackie was killed. He was 29 at the time, more than a decade older than her. By Caitlin's account, he was charming in the beginning, attentive and funny, frequently showing up with flowers. One of their regular spots, their go-to date location, was Grapevine Lake, the same lake where Jackie would later be found. Caitlin's mother met him once. Once was enough. Call it a mother's instinct. Call it the kind of knowledge that bypasses the rational brain and lands somewhere deeper. She took one look at Charles Bryant and felt something cold and certain settle in her gut. She told her daughter directly, "He's going to hurt you. He's going to do something bad." Those words would come back to haunt them both in ways neither of them could have anticipated. It didn't take long for Caitlin to start noticing the signs herself. Controlling behavior dressed up as affection, a suffocating kind of attention that shifted the air in any room, the kind of relationship where the boundaries start contracting so gradually that by the time you realize how small your world has become, it already feels normal. She made the decision to end things. It was the right call. Charles Bryant did not accept it. He was relentless. He created fake email accounts to bypass any blocks she had put up. He turned up wherever she was. He ran a parallel campaign to anyone who would listen, telling them that Caitlin was unstable, that she was overreacting, that she was the problem. The classic, well-worn playbook of someone who cannot tolerate being left, who would rather rewrite the story than face the reality of it. When Caitlin enrolled at the University of North Texas, a genuine fresh start, a new city, a new chapter, she believed she might finally be able to breathe. She had never told Charles where she was going to be living. Then he knocked on her dormitory door, carrying flowers, carrying a letter, having somehow talked his way past the security desk. Caitlin hid in a closet and called 911. He was arrested, and then, within the same day, he was back on campus.
I heard him say, "Hey, it's Charles. I have something for you."
You know for sure it was him?
Yeah, I know it's him.
Sierra 27, myself, a 443, and a B. You have school here?
No.
What's your name?
Another woman who had gone on a few dates with Bryant described an almost identical pattern. They had barely spent any real time together. They had never even kissed. And yet, he had told her he loved her. She described it as overwhelming, too much, too fast, with an intensity that had no basis in what they had actually shared. He had talked to her about his childhood, told her he had been sexually abused as a young boy. She said something in the way he spoke about it made her believe it was true. Whether it was or not, it was being deployed, weaponized, almost, as a way to create emotional intimacy before it had been earned. With a name in hand and a history that was already deeply troubling, investigators began building a timeline of the night of September 13th. And what that timeline showed was a portrait of a man moving with methodical, deliberate purpose towards something catastrophic. Cell phone records placed Charles and Jackie together from the moment they left the bar. Their phones tracked in sync, moving south from Denton toward Hazlitt, the area where Charles lived. At 10:56 that night, Charles was active on Facebook, posting with the casual, swaggering tone of someone who had not a care in the world. His post read, "Teach you tricks that will blow your mind." Jackie's phone was detected near his home at approximately 1:30 in the morning. At 4:41 in the morning, surveillance footage at a Walmart in Hazlitt showed Charles Dean Bryant walking calmly through the store. He selected a shovel. He paid for it. He left. Less than 2 hours after that transaction, the Grapevine Fire Department arrived at the lake. If that sequence alone wasn't enough to put Charles Bryant at the center of this investigation, what came next was. The very next day, the day after Jackie's burned and dismembered body was discovered, he posted on Facebook again. His post read, "Full moon, let's see what trouble I can get into." And he tried to contact Caitlin. He was now the unambiguous primary suspect. Investigators reached out to Caitlin to check on her safety. Before they had confirmed a single detail, before they had given her any information at all, Caitlin asked them, "Is this about the murder in Grapevine? Is this about Charles?" She already knew. Because Charles had made contact with Caitlin, he had violated the conditions of his protective order. That gave investigators exactly what they needed. They arrested him. And for the first time, Charles Dean Bryant was sitting in a room where they could ask him, directly, formally, about Jackie Vandagriff. September 18th, 2016. 4 days after Jackie was found. Charles Bryant sat down at Grapevine Police Department. Investigators showed him a photograph of Jackie Vandagriff. He said he might have seen her at a bar at some point, but claimed they had no real interaction and that he didn't know her personally. While Charles was being interviewed, a separate team was methodically going through his property. They were finding significant things. But there was still a critical gap. Investigators still could not confirm with certainty how Jackie had died, and without that, building a murder charge was going to be harder than the mountain of circumstantial evidence might suggest. As the interview continued, Charles was beginning to close down, to become guarded, to feel the shape of where things were heading. That is when the decision was made to bring in Texas Ranger Jim Holland. Jim Holland was not a standard detective. Over the course of nearly 3 decades in law enforcement, he had worked hundreds of homicide cases, with a specific focus on what he described as psychopathic and sociopathic crimes. He had sat across from people who had done things that most of us genuinely cannot bring ourselves to fully imagine. And over all those years, he had arrived at an insight that most people find surprising. Given the right conditions, most of them want to talk. They want someone to know what they did. They want to tell the story. Jim Holland's entire method was built around that truth.
Hey, how you doing?
Jim came in as the good cop, not in a theatrical, transactional way, but with genuine warmth, genuine patience. He wanted Charles to feel understood. He described wanting Charles to see him almost as a friend.
You know, you're not a violent dude. You haven't really been in trouble. You know, you obviously work out. I mean, you're a stud, right?
As someone in his corner, someone who was not there to judge him, but to listen. And it worked in a way that none of the previous interviews had. Charles became talkative. He smiled. He relaxed into the conversation in a way he had not done before. He clearly trusted Jim in a way that would ultimately prove to be his undoing. And as the conversation deepened and Jim began to lean in, literally, physically, the space between them shrinking, the room growing smaller in the way rooms do when something important is about to be said, Charles began to move inch by inch toward the truth. Jim got him to admit that he had been with Jackie that night. He said he had overheard her asking the bartender about job openings and jumped in to talk. He said when they eventually left, it had started raining, so he offered her a ride home.
It makes sense that you and I probably would offer to ride home.
She had been grateful and happily accepted. He framed it as a simple, kind act on a rainy night. Jim ordered pizza. He poured coffee. He set 2 slices down on a paper plate with all the casualness in the world and then, almost as an afterthought, gently steered the conversation toward Caitlin. Whether Jackie had reminded him of her, whether some version of that obsession had come into play in what happened.
Was there a time that you pictured her as this girlfriend that did you wrong, or did anything like that come into play?
No.
Okay, so something happens, bam, there's a snap, and we need to figure out what that is. And maybe, she got mad. Maybe she's giving you all the signals and then cut you off. I mean, there could be all kinds of different things going on here, right? I mean, chicks, right? Chicks.
Charles went quiet. He deflected. And then, 3 hours into the conversation, he finally offered his version of events. He said the two of them had been hooking up in his car, completely consensually, he insisted. He said Jackie had asked him to choke her with a cable tie. He claimed that neither of them had tightened it intentionally. He said he didn't remember it happening. And then he looked down, and she wasn't breathing anymore.
She didn't fight you in any way. So you think he just tightened up on its own, basically?
Not so much that, like, it had a snag on something or...
Okay. Then what happened?
She's not responsive. Shake her.
Jim Holland said he knew immediately that this account was a fabrication from start to finish. The medical examiner had found no evidence that any sexual activity had taken place between them. None at all. There was nothing in the physical evidence that supported even a fragment of the story Charles was telling. What he was constructing, in real time, in that room, on camera, was a narrative designed to do exactly one thing: cast himself not as a predator who had made a deliberate choice, but as someone who had been caught up in a tragic accident he couldn't have prevented. Jim had seen this exact pattern before. In all his years interviewing people who had committed extreme violence, he said they almost never give you the complete story from beginning to end. They leave out everything that makes them look calculated and intentional. They bend every detail toward victimhood, toward accident, toward the sense that things just happened around them rather than because of them. The goal is always the same: to be the person something terrible happened to, rather than the person who made something terrible happen. Jim said the sheer volume of dishonesty that came out of Charles Bryant's mouth during that interview was, in his considerable experience, astonishing. He was clear about his belief. Charles killed Jackie Vandagriff intentionally, and he believed it had been ignited and driven by his obsession with Caitlin, an obsession that had been feeding on itself for months, growing darker and more dangerous with every arrest, every restraining order, every rejection.
Kenny, what do you see in the pool? Now tell me exactly what you see occurring after that.
Go down that tree.
And what happens next?
Lit it on fire.
The fire. Why do you burn the body?
Good evidence.
While Jim Holland worked Charles Bryant in the interrogation room, investigators were working his property, and what they found there assembled, piece by piece, into a complete and devastating picture. Inside the house, a large hunting knife, consistent with the type of weapon that could have been used in the dismemberment of a body. Jackie's Texas Woman's University bag was found stuffed in his rubbish, and a white plastic zip tie, with Jackie's hair still caught in it. Inside his car, Jackie's cell phone battery, separated from the handset itself, as though someone had wanted to prevent the device from being tracked or located. And a stun gun. Jackie's DNA was present on the electrodes. The blue plastic children's pool that Jackie's body had been found burning inside, it had come from his own backyard. In that same backyard, there was evidence that someone had tried to dig a hole large enough to bury a body. The reconstruction that investigators arrived at was this. Charles had attempted to bury Jackie in his yard first. When that plan changed, for whatever reason, he moved her remains to Grapevine Lake and set the pool on fire. The Walmart footage showing him buying a shovel at 4:41 in the morning fit precisely into that sequence. And then there was what was found on his phone: child abuse material. Texas Ranger Jim Holland, surveying the full picture of what Charles Bryant had done and the kind of person he was revealing himself to be, was direct and unsparing in his assessment. Jackie's case, he said, bore all the hallmarks of a serial killer committing their very first murder. The improvised, chaotic crime scene, the mistakes, the evidence left behind in the panic of someone who was still learning. He said, "I think this was his disheveled murder." Was he going to stop? Why would he? There is no doubt in my mind that if Bryant had not been arrested by the Grapevine Police Department, he would have continued to kill. And I think as he got better and better at it, it would have become almost impossible to catch him. Charles Dean Bryant was charged with the capital murder of Jackie Vandagriff. The night Charles was arrested, Caitlin logged onto Facebook. She had spent months living with the specific, relentless fear of this man. The unexpected knocks at her door, the fake email accounts, the protective order that never quite felt like enough protection. The awareness that somewhere nearby he was still thinking about her, still watching, still waiting. And now, scrolling through her feed in a state of shock, reading the early reports of the arrest, she searched a name she had never heard before. Jackie Vandagriff. And Caitlin froze, because they were already Facebook friends. In the hours after killing Jackie, Charles had taken her phone. He used it to post on her Twitter, and he used it to send a friend request from Jackie's account directly to Caitlin, the woman he had been stalking for months, the woman for whom a protective order had been issued, the woman he was legally forbidden from contacting in any way. Sit with that for a moment. He had just killed a 24-year-old woman, and his very next act was to use the dead woman's phone to reach across to the one he hadn't gotten to yet. Caitlin said, "I think he really wanted to kill me. I think he wanted me dead. I don't know if he wanted to send me a message or just express his anger. He just took things way out of hand." Jim Holland's read on the night of September 13th was this: Charles Bryant walked into that bar in Denton in what Jim described as mission mode. He was going to kill someone that night. He had made that decision before he sat down at that bar. Whether the intended target was Caitlin specifically, or someone who looked enough like her to carry the weight of his obsession, Jim believed it didn't matter to him. He had locked onto Jackie Vandagriff. And Jackie, who had walked into that bar with nothing but hope and ordinary human curiosity, had been in the wrong place, at the wrong time, in the path of the wrong man.
Tonight, family and friends are mourning the loss of Jackie Vandagriff, the TWU student murdered last week.
A vigil has just begun in Frisco, and NTTV's Blake Holland is here with more. Blake?
Drake and Shelby, tonight friends and family of Jackie Vandagriff are gathered here at Frisco Common Park not to remember the horrific crime that occurred last week, but to look back on the life of a young woman gone too soon.
Yeah, you don't ever think something like this could happen to somebody you know.
Friends like Olivia Reyes, who recently started living with Jackie, were shocked to hear the news this week that a body found burned and mutilated last Wednesday in Grapevine had been identified as Jackie.
Disbelief. I was really shocked. It's really difficult news to process, and I'm still going through that process right now, but it's upsetting.
On Sunday, police arrested this man, 30-year-old Charles Bryant, on a charge of capital murder. Surveillance video shows the pair at a Denton bar just hours before her body was found. Cell phone records also show the two traveled from the bar to Bryant's Haslett home. A purse belonging to Vandagriff was found by police in a trash can at the home on Sunday. And in the hours before Vandagriff's body was found, Bryant is seen purchasing a shovel at an area Walmart, matching up with evidence in his backyard that someone had tried to dig a hole. Despite the large amount of evidence, those who knew Vandagriff were still left with questions into the murder of a selfless friend who they say did not deserve this.
Something like this should never happen.
And we do know tonight that Charles Dean Bryant does remain in jail on $1 million bond on that charge of capital murder. Tonight's candlelight vigil is set to get underway at around sunset.
Charles Bryant pleaded not guilty. His defense had a single line they were going to hold no matter what. This was a tragedy, but it was an accident. Two people who had been drinking heavily, who engaged in what the defense called consensual sexual activity. An accidental death, followed by a man who panicked and made a catastrophic series of decisions trying to cover it up and protect himself. Terrible decisions? Without question. Criminal? Absolutely. Tampering with evidence, for certain. But deliberate murder with intent? They said no. The prosecution had a different story entirely, and the evidence they were working with told it far more powerfully than any argument ever could. The medical examiner had found no evidence of sexual activity. None. The defense's foundational narrative, the entire premise of the accidental death, rested on a claim that the physical evidence flatly contradicted. Jackie's belongings were found at his home and in his car, items he had clearly tried to dispose of. Her DNA was on the electrodes of the stun gun. Her hair was on the zip tie. The kiddie pool came from his backyard. The shovel purchase was on camera, time-stamped at 4:41 in the morning. And then there was the dismemberment. The prosecution did not let the jury look away from that. If this had been a genuine accident, a panicked, tragic situation with no criminal intent behind the death itself, why was the body taken apart? What does dismembering someone have to do with covering up an accidental death? And then there was the heart. The prosecution asked the jury to hold that image, to really hold it. If Jackie died by accident, why was her heart cut out of her body? What does that tell us on a fundamental human level about the person who did that? The prosecution's theory of motive aligned exactly with what Jim Holland had put forward. Jackie was victim number 1. Caitlin was intended to be victim number 2. The stalking, the harassment, the obsession that had consumed Charles Bryant for months, it was all connected. It didn't begin with Jackie Vandagriff. And without this arrest, without this trial, it would not have ended with her.
That's right. Testimony started today in the trial of Charles Bryant Jr., the man seen with Jackie at the bar that night. Our David Goins has been tweeting and updating us from the courtroom. He joins us now live with the latest from the court today.
Good afternoon, Cynthia. Testimony wrapped up here about 10 minutes ago. Jurors so far have heard descriptions but have not yet seen surveillance video at a variety of Denton businesses that show Jackie Vandagriff with the man prosecutors say killed her hours later.
It's my daughter, Jackie.
On the stand today, Ricky Vandagriff says it wasn't like Jackie to not call or to make plans for her mom's birthday. It was on that day, just a few hours later, the couple learned that Jackie was dead. During opening statements, defense attorneys admit that Bryant did commit a crime by attempting to dispose of her body, but they told jurors that she died during what the defense called consensual sex in Bryant's car.
He taking his wigs out. He is in the car with a young lady who has died during the course of sex.
However, prosecutors plan to lay out Jackie's final hours for jurors to show how Bryant took the vibrant 24-year-old out of a bar and away from her loved ones forever.
Tragically, an evil, destructive figure stepped in front of her on that path.
Jurors on Tuesday are expected to see a lot of surveillance video in the courtroom. This trial is expected to last all week. Charles Bryant faces life in prison if he's found guilty. Live in Fort Worth, David Goins, Channel 8 News.
The cell phone testimony was particularly powerful. An FBI expert walked the jury through the digital trail with clinical precision, both phones moving in perfect sync from Denton southward to Hazlitt. Jackie's device pinging towers progressively closer to Charles Bryant's address through the early hours of the morning, the signal eventually going silent at the time investigators believed she was killed. It was like watching a map being drawn, in real time, in retrospect, across the final hours of someone's life.
The next activity I have is on the victim's phone from 12:58 to 1:32 a.m. And the phone, the bar is kind of about right here. So we started moving south, and so 12:58, utilize this tower sector. Then it shifts, goes farther south at 1:16 a.m. and then at 1:10 a.m. So kind of somewhere between 1:10 and 1:16, and so there's an overlap between these two towers.
During the proceedings, there was one significant blow to the state's case. The judge had to rule on whether Caitlin's testimony, Her full and detailed account of the stalking, the harassment, the months of fear, the protective order, the dormitory door, could be placed in front of the jury. Caitlin sat on the stand without the jury present and told her story. All of it. Bravely and completely. The judge listened and then ruled that her testimony could not be admitted. That was a hard blow to absorb. The full context of who Charles Bryant was, the documented pattern of his behavior, the specific obsession that investigators believed had ultimately led to Jackie's death. The jury would not hear any of it directly from Caitlin. They would have to reach their verdict based on the physical evidence and the timeline alone. The prosecution also made a strategic decision around Jim Holland's 6-hour recorded interrogation. Rather than playing the full recording for the jury, they made a calculated choice. They told the defense that if Charles wanted the jury to hear his version of events, he was welcome to take the stand and tell it himself. In his own words, under oath. Subject to cross-examination. It was a bold move, but it was a smart one, because Charles on the stand, trying to reconstruct and maintain his story, trying to remember which version he had told and in which sequence, trying to hold the timeline together across 6 hours of recorded conversation that prosecutors had sitting right there in front of them, would have been an extraordinarily precarious position. Every contradiction would have been waiting for him. Charles Bryant declined to testify. 2 hours. That is how long the jury deliberated before returning their verdict. 2 hours to weigh everything that had been placed before them. The surveillance footage, the cell phone data, the DNA evidence, the zip tie with her hair caught in it, the shovel, the kiddie pool from his backyard, the attempted burial, the stun gun, the dismemberment, the heart. And to arrive at the only conclusion that all of that evidence taken together supported.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Charles Dean Bryant, Jr., guilty of the offense of murder.
Guilty. Charles Dean Bryant was convicted of capital murder because the prosecution could not prove additional aggravating factors beyond reasonable doubt, no confirmed sexual assault, no kidnapping charge that could be fully substantiated. He avoided the death penalty. In 2018, he was sentenced to life in prison. An additional 20 years were added for tampering with evidence, to run concurrently with the life sentence. He showed no reaction when the verdict was read aloud in court.
In a statement, Jackie Vandagriff's parents said this is the day they've waited more than 19 months for. However, it certainly doesn't ease any of the grief over the loss of their daughter. Her convicted killer, Charles Bryant, today in court showed no reaction when the jury convicted him of murder and then sentenced him to life in prison. Now, during closing arguments for the sentencing phase, prosecutors brought up the fact that Charles Bryant had a stalking incident with a previous girlfriend and that investigators had also discovered child pornography on his phone. 2 additional reasons they told jurors to sentence him to the max of life in prison. After the verdict was read, Vandagriff's family, who sat through days of horrific and graphic testimony surrounding her murder, shared that they are starting an endowment at TWU in Denton, where Jackie went to school, to, in their words, build on her legacy of kindness and compassion.
What would Jackie say if we could talk to her? We believe she would say, "Remember me. Remember my hopes and dreams for the future and my plans to get there."
It was a hard case. It was hard for the state. It was hard for the defense. But I think that our system works.
Bryant's attorneys added they have already appealed the decision. He also was convicted of 20 years in prison for tampering with evidence. That will be served at the same time that this life sentence that the jury handed down this afternoon. Live in Tarrant County, David Goins, Channel 8 News.
Charles Bryant is eligible to be considered for parole after serving 20 years of his life sentence. That is not a guaranteed release. It is a hearing, a review, a decision that will be made by people who will look at everything he did and everything he is and determine whether he should ever be permitted to walk freely in the world again. Time will tell what that decision looks like. Jackie Vandagriff was 24 years old with an entire life stretched out in front of her. She was studying to help people feel well in their own bodies, She was the kind of friend who met you exactly where you were, no performance required. She had started gymnastics at 3 years old and had never stopped reaching for the next thing. She was someone's Jackie squared. She was the smartest person her best friend had ever known. She left a beautiful legacy in the people she loved and who loved her back. Her family established an endowment at Texas Woman's University in Jackie's name, building, in her own words and her own field, on what her friend described as her beautiful legacy of kindness and compassion. Her uncle asked what Jackie would say to us now if she could. He believed she would say, "Remember me. Remember my hopes and my dreams for the future. Remember the plans I was making to get there. So remember her." Not as a case number, not as a crime scene photograph, not as a headline, but as a 24-year-old woman who walked into a bar on a Tuesday evening in September with hope in her chest and everything still ahead of her. That is who she was, and that is who she deserves to be remembered as. If this story affected you, and I believe if you've made it this far, it has, please share it. Pass it on. These victims deserve to be remembered by far more than a case number, and every person who learns Jackie's name keeps a part of her story alive in the way she deserved. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them, and this community means everything to this channel. Thank you for watching Classified Real Crime Files. I'll see you in the next episode.